This is chapter 27 of Flotsam, The Secret of the Old Lunchbox. After what seemed like forever, Mr. Heckler crawled back beneath the boards to Amy. He shined his light on her still face and tapped her cheeks. "Amy," he murmured. "Hey, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. She smiled through her tears. "You're back." "Yeah, help is on its way." Just then, the boards above them shifted, causing dust and plaster to rain down. "You shouldn't be here," Amy said. "It's too dangerous." Mr. Heckler smiled and shook his head. "I'll be fine. Someone needed to be down here with you so you don't fall asleep." Complaining timbers above them shifted again, causing falling plaster to filter down on them again. "You should leave," Amy insisted. "I'll be okay." "Don't worry," Mr. Heckler said. "That's just the team moving stuff around. They'll have you out of here in no time. Here, I got something to tell you that will cheer you up." "You do?" "Yes, I do. You know that old lunchbox that I asked you to find?" "Yeah, I still have it in my room. I feel bad I haven't taken it to Mr. Burnham yet." "Well, don't feel bad. I gave it back to him today." "You did?" "I did." Amy's eyes filled with interest. "Do you know why he kept it with him? Bolted shut for 30 years? Mr. Heckler nodded. "I do now. Would you like to hear the story behind it? It's quite long." Amy nodded. "Well," Mr. Heckler said, "the story of the lunchbox goes back clear down to World War II. Still you want to hear it?" "Yes," Amy said. Mr. Heckler cleared his throat. "Well, okay, here goes. A long time ago, long before you were born, when you were just a star in the sky, World War II broke out. At age 21, Mr. Burnham signed up in the United States Air Force after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and I, being a Sherman, was drafted into the Sherman ranks as a prison guard, watching mostly American prisoners so they didn't escape. Well, during this time, Mr. Burnham's plane was shot down. He parachuted into enemy territory. Not long after, he was caught and taken to the prison camp I was stationed at. Just so you know, the conditions in that camp were pretty terrible. There was a lot of sickness, starvation, and death I couldn't do nothing about. I hated seeing the way the prisoners were treated, and I had to do what I was told. People think that just because you're a Sherman does not mean that you asked what Hitler was doing. Well, it's not true. I didn't. I hated what was going on in my country." "That must have been terrible for you," Amy said. Mr. Heckler nodded. "Yes, it was. Worse than you could ever imagine. The smell of sickness and death was everywhere. The camp was full of lice, rats, and bed bugs. One day, while the prisoners were outside in the compound, I just happened to be standing by the big lagoon where all the manure and human waste was put. Something happened and I tripped and fell into the lagoon of muck. Man, that was the worst, gosh awful stink I ever did smell. It's forever burnt into my memory. I got covered head to toe in muck, wallowed in it, trying to get out, but I couldn't get out because it was so slippery. The prisoners started laughing, and even the officers. I was terribly ashamed. I screeched and hollered and yelled for someone to come help me out, but nobody came. You could say I felt very flotsamish, just as I felt like giving up and seeing myself wallowing in the muck for the rest of my days. A prisoner, Mr. Burnham, grabbed a barrel. I grabbed the barrel of the gun I had dropped and held it out for me to grab so I could get a hold of that dang stench hole. Right then, Mr. Burnham and I became friends. I mean, it takes a great special kind of person to do what Mr. Burnham did. I made sure his kindness did not go unnoticed. From then on, I made sure Mr. Burnham did not go hungry, even when I knew I was risking my own neck by helping him. I got a lunch box, filled it with food, and hid it where Mr. Burnham could find it. Then, in turn, when it was empty, he would put it in a place where I could find it and refill it. This went on for some time, that is, until my higher-ranking officer found out. Mr. Burnham, or Joe as I called him back then, was summoned for questioning, but before they could beat him to death, I confessed to feeding him. After that, I was beaten, sentenced to death, and sent before a firing squad. Luckily for me, the Americans started bombing the building behind us right before I was to be shot, and ran away, changed my name to Mr. Sam Heckler, and been living as a hermit most of my life." "Wow," Amy murmured. "You were brave. It's funny that you and Mr. Burnham didn't find each other before now." Mr. Heckler shook his head. "Guess we just need someone like you to find us. If we hadn't found the lunchbox, we might have never known, especially since I didn't know Mr. Burnham's real name. It seems that not long ago after the war, when everything was starting to settle down, Mr. Burnham published the story of a German newspaper. Those are some of the papers you found in the lunchbox. I guess Mr. Burnham thought I was killed because of him. Made him feel mighty bad. So bad he kept that lunchbox for 30 years as a reminder of my life and the goodness we see in the strangers we meet every day. That's pretty amazing, Amy said. So what is your real name? Anyway, Peter Snyder. Amy smiled. I like that name a lot better than Mr. Heckler. Yeah, Mr. Heckler nodded. I did too, once. You don't? Now? Nope. Amy looked at Mr. Heckler searchingly. Her face was ashen, and her eyes looked pained. So this is a story of a part of your secret you are going to tell me? Mr. Heckler shook his head. No, it's not a secret. It's only a small part of it. Suddenly the boards above them shifted, and light and voices came pouring through. We're down here! Mr. Heckler yelled. Hurry!